when you're ready to go with item 10.
Yep, we're back on.
Okay, welcome back to any members of the public who've come back to us. Thank you very much for your tolerance while we went into exempt on that important issue on equity portfolio review. Item 10 is annual review of risk management strategies. And can I invite Nathan Rowlandson to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. So this report's just for noting, monitoring of the RM strategies is delegated to panel, and then committee do an annual review just to ensure all of those RM strategies are fundamentally still meeting their objectives. No recommendations to change any of the strategies at this point. And we'd need to go into exempt session, actually, if there are questions on the attached Mercer report, which panel discussed at their last meeting.
Right, thank you very much. Do we have any questions or points? And if any of you want to speak to Appendix 1 or 2, can you just say before you start speaking? Because if you want to speak on Appendix 1 or 2, I will have to move us back into exempt session. So let me just check chat. I've got no one coming up as wanting to speak on this item. Is that correct? Right, so we're happy to note the recommendations. Is that correct? Everyone happy with that? I can see no one arguing with that, so we'll note that. So that's item 10 done with. Thank you very much. Item 11, Brunel Pension Partnership update on pooling. Can I invite Liz Woodyard to present the report?
Thanks, Chair. So this is a routine update report, and it is at the moment just for noting. There's nothing that I'm bringing to your attention particularly for discussing. However, I don't know whether the Chair or Tony Bartlett wanted to say anything that was from the Oversight Board meeting that was held yesterday. I don't know whether there was anything that you wanted to update the committee on. Just to confirm, though, that the transition of assets is now over, it's complete. You've got exempt Appendix 3, which has got the final transition costs. Overall, they've come in slightly higher than the estimate, and that was because of the complexity of two of the transitions in particular, but still very well executed and efficiently done for all clients. We are, however, achieving our fee savings as we in line with the business case, and that is intact. And just to note that full disclosure of all costs and savings are in our annual report. We have to do that annually, so that we have to have full transparency of that. But I haven't put that in here because we haven't actually finalised that yet. So I'm happy to take any questions on the exempt appendices, and if anyone asks a question, we can decide whether we really need to go into exempt or not. Right. And lastly, just to remind you that there are 2 workshops coming up that Brunel are doing on the 27th of September and the 6th of October. The first one's on the macro outlook and portfolios, and the second one is on the responsible investing aspects.
Right, I've got Tony Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. I just thought it was worth mentioning, following the Brunel Oversight Board meeting, we do have 7 new chairs of pension committees across Brunel. Not all of them are new to pensions. Quite a few have been on pensions committees before, so they are well versed with pensions issues. And I think generally within the Oversight Board, there's recognition now that we're coming to the end of the transition process. Moving to business as usual, and the Oversight Board needs to start being a bit more cognizant of the strategic issues, and particularly climate change. And the chair, who is the EA chair, is expecting to pick up those issues now on an ongoing basis at the Oversight Board. So I think it's particularly it's particularly good timing, really, that we're making the moves that we are. But we expect to sort of get much more information now coming out of Brunel I would have thought, and hopefully get all the rest of the pools moving along with us now.
Okay, thank you very much. Shirley Marsh.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a comment, really. I think this is a significant milestone, and we ought to just stop and congratulate Brunel and the Avon executive team in delivering it in a very efficient manner.
Thank you very much. I'll endorse that, and I'm sure they'll pass that message back.
Thank you.
Got no further comments. The only point I'd like to make on this is that I'm sure, particularly the councillors present from all over the place, but possibly some of the independent members as well, you're getting a lot of questions following the interest that's raised in this whole agenda issue on carbon with COP26. It's just to inform you that I've asked Tony to prepare me a statement to make to Baines Fall Council, which is in a few weeks' time. And I'm quite happy to make sure that statement is circulated around the entirety of this committee so that you can see what I'm saying in public. And for those councillors who are perhaps facing similar questions, they can give a similar answer. That was all of the only bit I wanted to bring from yesterday's meeting. I've got, Paul May, Councillor Paul May, you've come in. Thank
you, Chair. I think that's really good news that you're intending to do that. Could I ask through you, Chair, to Tony? We sit in and get a lot of professional advice. It would be very interesting. There's similar organisations around the country that have been set up. Is there any comparative figures that we could pull out from other organisations?
Are you talking about pooling, Paul, in particular, or are you talking about climate
yes.
data?
Because I mean, we believe we're doing very well and we'll get better, but how do we know as councillors what the context in which we're doing that?
Yeah, so I think it's a good question. I'm not sure that there is a huge amount of information on who is participating and who is kind of taking more strategic views on investment. Perhaps Steve, do you have any more information that you could help more with?
Yeah, so I mean, we've obviously got a lot of experience and anecdotal evidence based on the number of clients that we work with. And generally speaking, I think the Environment Agency are still regarded as the leader in the marketplace, but Avon are not hugely behind, actually, in terms of everything that you've done. And we've recently developed a new tool within Mercer, an internal benchmarking exercise, to kind of assess how far all of our clients have been progressing in terms of climate change. So this looks at over 650 clients, and we haven't shared the results of this for Avon yet with officers, but we will be. Avon is well in the sort of top 10% of our wider client base, and that's private sector and LGPS. And so, yeah, we've increasingly have evidence to support what we believe anyway about your leading and progressive position.
Certainly, Unison do sort of look at the LGPS funds as well and have produced reports. I'm not sure whether they're biannual or annual, and we do feature towards the sort of the top of the tree there in terms of the activities that we're undertaking, obviously along with the EA.
Thank you very much.
I just feel, Chair, that sorry to come back. That,
yeah, sure.
Ordinary councillors in the council chamber are not a party to these discussions, and it would be really handy to have some context in which they're making the decision at the council meeting.
Yeah, right. Thank you. I'll work on that with Tony over the coming weeks. I've got John Finch next.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back to Councillor May's question, I think the slide that Brunel used, which was an independent survey by Ernst & Young in this area, and how well Brunel have done, highlights that what we're getting and our position in the market through Brunel is one of the leading ones. And going back to some of the earlier comments, I think from Avon's point of view, without being part of Brunel, the progress that has been made would not have been possible by Avon on its own. I think the strength of the partnership has really paid off in that regard. Thanks, Chair.
Right. Thank you. Any other points? So I've had no one move anything yet. Are we happy to note the recommendations?
So moved, Chair.
Thank
Second.
you. So who's that seconded?
Chris.
Hi, Chris. Thank you very much. Okay. Again, I will assume that everyone is for the motion unless I see some action on my chart or in the chat. So I'm getting no dissent anywhere, no sign of dissent. I'll give you all a few more seconds. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 12, investment panel activity. Can I ask Nathan Rawlinson to present the report?
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, the substance of the last panel meetings pretty much covered in the other agenda items that we've discussed today. And the draft minutes from the panel meeting last week were distributed to members yesterday. They're for noting only. And just for your information, officers are looking to sort of rationalise this paper. And from next quarter, you'll likely see some revisions to the sort of reporting format just to make the information a bit more user-friendly. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Right, so before we go into questions and points of view, can I just remind people, if you want to speak on exempt Appendix 2, then we will have to go into a closed session. So if you do want to speak on exempt 2, Appendix 2, can you please indicate so before you start speaking? Right, I've got no one so far that's asked to speak on this paper. I'll give you all a few more seconds. Right, I've got Councillor Sean Stevenson-McGaughan.
Just as the chair of the panel, Chair, I'd just like to propose that we note our minutes and exempt minutes from the previous meeting.
Thank you very much. Is that seconded by anyone?
Second, Chair.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I've still got no one asking to speak or comment. So we'll move to the vote. Can I again assume that everyone is in favour? If you're not in favour, please indicate in chat or sort of on screen. I'm getting no one looking as though they don't want to support this. So again, that's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. So next up, we've gone to item 13, investment performance and strategy monitoring for periods ending 30th of June. Can I ask Nathan Rawlinson to present the report, please?
Yeah, me again, thank you. So this is the standard performance report for noting. Key points include another strong quarter for growth assets as evidenced by the funding level and stable deployment of capital into private market strategies. So post-quarter end saw the Brunel private debt portfolio begin calling capital and the Cycle 1 secured income portfolio is now over 90% drawn down. So Mercer will take you through their performance report at Appendix 2. So over to you, Steve.
Thanks, Nathan. Drawing out some of the key points across the various reports that we've done for the quarter, I think the key message is just to note just what a dramatic improvement there has been in the funding level. So back in March last year, at the depth of the COVID situation from a financial market perspective, the funding level was 84%. It's now, as at the end of June, and probably increased further, around about 101%. So there's a huge increase in absolute terms, and we're now in a position where we've gone slightly ahead of where we expected to be from a sort of funding plan perspective, which is clearly very good news. So we've seen across the board increases in the value of the growth assets, where Brunel have been managing assets, albeit some of the funds, it's been for a relatively short period of time. Their relative performance is looking, it's got off to a good start, which is clearly good news. In terms of ongoing kind of macro risks and sort of forward-looking position, yeah, it does feel to us as though that we are getting maybe sort of closer to some form of turning point, in the sense that markets, as they go up, they get more expensive. Inflation is clearly a key issue. So central banks are starting to talk a lot more about an increase in interest rates and a sort of slow wind down of monetary easing. That potentially represents a major risk to financial markets, because if there is some form of policy misstep, which the market doesn't react well to, and I think the biggest risk is if interest rates rise too quickly and too far, that could lead to knock-on impacts to other markets, in particular equities. The good news for you is that there was the implementation of a major project in May this year, and that's moving from the static equity protection strategy to the dynamic one. And the real benefit here is that your protection will be evolving in line with markets. So we're looking to get protection from the first negative -10% move in equities. Also, you would suffer the first 10% move, and that's considered fairly normal. We wouldn't be overly concerned if we saw that type of move. But where you're going to get permanent protection on, in terms of how markets evolve, is if markets fell from -10 to -30. And if we got to those kind of levels, that would be sort of quite, it would have quite a detrimental impact on the funding position. So the good news is that you've got that permanent protection in place now, and we see that a big enhancement to what you had before. And I think that should allow you to sleep easier at night if we do get these market shocks in the future. The equity protection strategy also potentially gives you some more flexibility to look at revising the strategy, and we're doing some sort of work on that later on this year. And then, so other than that, happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you very much. I've got a question from William Liu.
Yeah, thank you. Steve, I got two questions really. One, could you explain your terminology permanent? What do you mean by that? Is it an annual renewing contract? And the other question I have is, do you feel that our portfolio is well balanced for the inflation risks?
So I'll take the second question first, William. So on the inflation, we do think you're well positioned overall from that perspective. You're getting indirect inflation protection through exposure to real assets, albeit they are building up over time. So that's secured income, property, renewable energy. We are also looking to do some rebalancing of the inflation hedging that you've got in the risk management mandate. And that's nothing's fundamentally changed there. We just need to do an update as a result of we've done another look at the nature of the liabilities, and potentially you're going to be doing some rebalancing and increasing the exposure to what you currently have. And then when I said permanent protection, what I mean by that is before you had protection in place that was very time period specific, whereas what you have in now, it's permanent in the sense it's always there, but it will be evolving in line with market conditions. So as markets go up and as markets go down, the protection will be evolving, but it's still essentially going to be giving you that protection between a -10 and a -30% move in equity markets. And that will only come off if you make a strategic decision to take off the equity protection strategy.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got Pauline Gordon next.
Hi, thank you. In the corporate pensions world, schemes would tend to have more of a journey plan, so that when they were overfunded, they would de-risk and take some more risk out of the growth assets and put it into their matching assets. I just wondered if when we come to do the strategy review next year, we might think about something like this for Avon.
That's always in our mind, Pauline, in the background, and always something that we can discuss with Paul. The big difference is, I think for LGPS, the cost of future accrual is incredibly important, and a big difference that's not necessarily such a big factor in the private sector. And so the cost of future accrual is really heavily dependent on the future expected return of the investment strategy. So I think that naturally does put a constraint or a limitation by how much we can invest in matching assets. But as I alluded to earlier, I think with the equity protection strategy, we've got a bit more flexibility now, I think, to look at various options, and that's going to be explored later on in the year in conjunction with with Paul, your actuary.
Okay, thank you. I've got no one else indicating they want to ask a question on this paper. I'll give you a few more seconds if you want to put an MIS in. Does anyone want to make any points in a debate or anything? Can I have someone move something then?
Happy to move the recommendations, Chair.
And seconded?
Second, Chair.
Thank you, Bruce. Right, again, I'll assume that unless I see discontent, I'm assuming everyone is in favour of the recommendation. I'll give the discontent possibility a few seconds. Right, I'm seeing no action, so again, that's a unanimous vote for the recommendation. Thank you very much. Item 14, update on legislation. Can I have Jeff Cleek present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. This is the regulatory update for noting in your papers. It gives you the position on key issues at the end of August. The report table summarises the main legislative updates since the last meeting, together with any actions undertaken by the fund. No significant changes since the last report, but there is an expectation that developments on exit payments cap will probably come through by the end of this year. Happy to take any questions.
Have we got any questions from anyone? I'm seeing no action. Does anyone want to debate anything on this paper?
I've got a question, Chair.
Yeah, okay, please ask away.
Thank you. And thanks for the paper. I was going to raise it in the admin paper, but I think I'll raise it now if that's okay. In terms of the McLeod changes and the pensions dashboard, these are obviously significant projects that are coming our way. And given the challenges we have on admin, is there any possibility that we will get some support from an external source? You know, whether LGPS schemes, we're all going to be going through these projects, will we get some kind of support from external areas rather than our own teams?
Thank you, Shirley. Yeah, I can sort of, I mean, there will always be support out there, certainly. We are in a position at the moment, so we already have a McLeod team set up. So at the moment, we're going through the data gathering exercise, making good progress on that with all of our employers. So we're kind of pretty much ahead of the game there as much as we possibly can be, bearing in mind we don't know what remedy will look like in its entirety yet, although we're expecting that to come through for 2023. Likewise, with the pensions dashboard, we have a specific resource engaged now on working towards ensuring that we're ready for that. Things are coming through on the pensions dashboard, particularly with the software provider. So we'll make sure we're engaged with those there, and we will keep. We're attending all the webinars that are currently being put out there on both, well, certainly on the dashboard, and as they do occur for McLeod, we attend those also. So I think it's not off the table that we won't engage with external support, but it just depends on what it looks like and whether we need it. And so I think we just assess the situation as we go forward at this point in time. But yeah, appreciate certainly both elements will actually have an impact on the overall administration in time.
Yeah,
particularly remedy. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking particularly on McLeod. You know, so every scheme's going to set their own little project up to manage that going forward, and I'm just thinking there must be a more efficient way of doing that.
Certainly collaborative working, and I think we'll look at that in the Southwest with the Southwest group. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you, Shirley. I've got no indication of any other questions or any. Does anyone want to raise any points in the debate? Can I have someone move that we note the recommendations?
So moved, Chair.
And second, please.
Second, Chris.
Right, thank you. So again, I'm going to assume that we're all in favour of it unless I see some discontent coming up. So the default position is that you're in support. I'm seeing no discontent. So again, that's another unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Item 15, pension administration. Can I invite Jeff Cleek to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this is the normal quarterly admin report for noting. The focus on this particular report, though, is around administration performance over the last quarter and a little bit sort of further back over the last 18 months. I think during the past, sort of since the pandemic, really, I think we've seen a gradual decline in performance. We've done some research on, analysis around what's been the drivers around that. We've had a 58% increase in our workload over that time, mainly through additional requests coming through from membership, an increase of about 200 cases per month, 400 cases per month coming through on average over that time as well. So gradually increasing the workload that we have on the team. At the same time, and as committee members will be aware, there was a move back in June last year to support an increase in resource. We were looking for an additional 11 posts. During that last year, we've actually recruited or had people move into 22 different posts. That's created a massive burden on training and people learning new roles, etc. So that in itself has impacted the performance of the admin team. Likewise, we've still focused on a number of key strategic projects and key projects during the time, particularly the work undertaken for the annual benefit statements, which is a project which starts in around about February each year and finishes around about October when we get the pension saving statements out. Across the whole portfolio of 460 plus employers, that's a mammoth task to run through, particularly working in a remote situation that we are at the moment. And obviously we are continuing to work remotely with very limited access to the office. So that does impact training and sort of team collaborative working. What I'd like to do is just very briefly go through the annex or the appendix 1 on page 207, just to give an example of how we are sort of performing really at the moment. So on page 207, we've got appendix 1, which is the overall performance by case type. And at the top where we've got retirements, bearing in mind the regulator's requirement was that we should focus around critical cases such as retirements and deaths. And our aim is to maintain an overall 90% or above performance against those SLA targets that we have in place. So looking at retirements in particular, I'll take payments. So during the period we've processed 144 retirement cases and brought them into payment, 110 of those were actually within the deadline of 15 days. So that's actually dropping us below what our target type is. If you look at page 208 across payments also, you can see that 110 cases are sort of within those 15 days, but there is a significant number that are beginning to fall outside of that now. And whilst we've focused around those critical processes, there has been some gradual slippage over time, and some of the non-critical processes have actually sort of overall need sort of addressing at this point in time now. So whilst we seem to be getting out high numbers still within our target times, when you look at the overall volume, there is a kind of a gradual decline in our output. And I think that kind of pretty much sort of explains it on page 209, which gives you the overall performance trend over the last 4 quarters. So which generally shows a movement from amber green to kind of amber red and red. So you know, we are in a situation at the moment where we've gone through some transition, some transformation within our kind of workforce, which has kind of been one of the key drivers to these sort of results being poor by comparison. But at the same time, I think we do try and demonstrate transparency through our data, through our performance, and also through the quality of our data that we hold within the system. So there's a constant sort of churn to rectify that. As far as workforce and workload is concerned, I had a meeting with service managers and team leaders last week, and there is a project which is going to kick off in October to address our overall backlog of work against business as usual. So we will separate the two out and manage the backlog process of, so all of the outstanding cases as at the beginning of October will be treated as a backlog, and we will work through those cases over in a coordinated way over the course of the next 6 months to reduce that down to reduce that down to 0. That's the aim. We'll review that after 3 months to see how progress is being made. At the same time, we'll have a separate team set up which will deal with business as usual. And as the backlog reduces, then team members will move across onto the business as usual team to support that. So going forward, we should have a clear and concise way of sort of managing our workload and picking up sort of our performance, so we can begin to move back from red amber into amber green. So I would expect to see a significant change in our performance by sort of the beginning of the new financial year, having worked through that. Looking at our staffing numbers, we have sort of had a shift in the sands, really, as it were, over the course of the last sort of 5 to 10 years, but particularly most recently since the introduction of the regulator and the more scrutiny that's put on the fund and the more governance requirements that we're made to do now. So where before we had probably 80% of the workforce member facing, we've now got less than 50% of the workforce facing our members and servicing our members, with so much more of the workforce focused around governance, servicing the employers and controlling the data coming in. So we are, as you're aware, looking at sort of the transformation process, digital transformation. So part of that will be looking at how that structure, how our existing structure will change to kind of manage future needs, future requirements. And obviously, we've got a number of key posts to be sort of introduced into the administration, hopefully sooner rather than later. And we've got a couple of posts out with our consultants at the moment just being reviewed. But the hope is it will have that transformation role and the project management role in place in the beginning part of the new year to support us taking the service forward. I was going to cover off very briefly the fact that we did take this report to the pension board earlier in the week. Generally, there are a couple of concerns fed back by the board during the meeting. Those were actually, thanks, I can't read, my glasses aren't quite, my eyesight's not as good as it used to be. So I think that there are concerns around the board around the IT delivery that we have at the moment, which isn't really sort of sitting comfortably with officers. We have there is a Baines IT rollout, and at the moment we aren't actually sort of necessarily all connected to it, although it is in sort of underway. There are also issues around how we'll sort of return to the building, what that will look like, and access to the building generally going forward, and how we will work as a team and how that might change. And also obviously concerns around our own resource and the coping with the workload that we have. So a couple of concerns around that. Hopefully the purpose of this particular report is to try and give the committee some assurances that we are looking to put things in place to move things forward in a positive way. But there are some things that's slightly out of our control at the moment, certainly as far as the building access concern and also the IT availability across the board. There's also an update on the risk register, which I'm happy to just quickly go through. So there has been a management review, as there is every quarter, of the risk register. There's only been one risk score which has been changed, and that's the disaster recovery risk R01, disaster recovery and business continuity. The score has been slightly increased to reflect the fact that business continuity plan is currently being reviewed by our own internal audit. The fund has also taken part in a cybersecurity benchmarking exercise, which was carried out recently by Aon, and based on our responses, Aon have benchmarked us against other LGPS sites. We're currently analysing that as a management team, and the gathering the results, and further internal assurances from Baines IT, as well as some of our external providers, will be gathered. A future action plan will be developed and a full report brought to the Pensions Committee in due course. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I've got one question lined up at the moment, and that's Richard Orton.
Yeah, Jeff, you implied working from home is hampering an efficiency of the team. Can I ask why there's not been a return to office working? If working from home hampers efficiency, even on a part-time basis. I think most employers are doing that. I've got a second question after you answer that.
Oh, okay. Well, I think the situation is that there is very limited access to the building, and that's for people who are considered to be at risk or unable to work from home at all. So at the moment, we have very, very limited access. I think the efficiency doesn't necessarily come into it on that side of things. The office is open at the moment for team meetings and work planning, but not for day-to-day working. So that is a contributory factor, and certainly as an administration, we do rely heavily on teams working together. That's the basis for how people learn, really, and that has caused us problems, certainly. But it's been made quite clear that unless someone is at risk by working at home, that they are unable to return to the office to work normally. So we have to abide by sort of the rules that Baines have put in place at the moment.
I'm surprised by that. I'm very surprised by that. The second question is, you said, I think there were 22 people have changed posts, which put a lot of training, I couldn't work out whether you had any additional staffing or whether people have just changed posts to actually increase your staffing resource and reduce the backlog, hopefully.
Yeah. So the request to the committee back last summer was to actually have an increase in our staffing numbers, which was approved. And because it would be difficult to increase or recruit a large bulk of staff all in one go, we were doing it in a phased process. over a course of a year, 15 months. So we've gone through pretty much 2 phases of that recruitment now. So we have recruited a number of new people, so the organisation has grown, but at the same time there's been a certain amount of backfilling and people moving internally. So that 22 is a mixture of new posts and people moving within the department, but we still have about we have just over 4 posts still outstanding to be filled, and also a number of posts that have been created around transformation that aren't included there at the moment. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixture.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Next, I've got Sean Stevenson-McCall.
Thank you very much. Jeff, my question is with regard to Appendix 3 and with regard to member self-service. Obviously, you're talking about the impact administrative challenges that you're facing. One of the key ways to drive and to reduce that is to get our members to interact with us online and to sign up. Currently, we see the figures they're raising around a third, 29.7%. I have no understanding whether that is good or bad compared to the sector in terms of LGPS or private providers. And regardless of that, what are we doing to increase that, and where do you hope to see the figures be in the next year? Do you have a target?
Yes, thank you, Sean. Yeah, a couple of things on that is compared with the other LGPS funds, we're around about sort of on par, if not above some. I think some funds only measure actives and deferreds. Some funds don't include pensioners, bizarrely. So you can't also always measure like for like, but we're roughly about a third of the way where we should be. We are now looking to bring in, or we have brought in some resource now specifically, which we'll use as customer service, and that will be used to sort of signpost members to self-serve, whereby we get lots of estimate requests at the moment, which members can actually do themselves. So the customer service area will actually be used to signpost those members by triaging the incoming post and contacting those members to say, you can actually do this yourself, but also looking at the pinch points where we can actually get members to actually be signed up straight away when they join the organisation or when they come to actually leave the organisation. So those are 2 areas that we're going to be addressing, and that will be sort of introduced through our customer charter.
What is the anticipated or hopeful outcome of this activity? Where would you like to see those figures be? Or have you got no idea on the effectiveness of what you've just outlined?
I think it's very difficult to say. I think we certainly, if you're looking at active members, because that's where most of the traffic comes through, you want to see that increase from 35% up to at least 60+% over the course of the first 18 months of this introduction. That would be the target. And I think we do have to set ourselves a target to actually work towards. At the moment, it's just a figure that's there, and it kind of we need some drivers in there to aim for. So I'll be picking up with the comms manager, and we'll be putting together a bit of a plan.
Okay, thank you.
Shirley Marsh.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. I've got a couple of points. Just following on from Sean's point about self-service, and given the sort of constraints we've got and the challenge we've got on resources, which I think is not going to get much better. There is a lot of pressure in the industry at the moment on salaries and turnover within pensions admin staff. So that's obviously going to add to our challenges. Are we going to be looking at whether we're being more proactive in not forcing, but pushing members to self-service, particularly for where they initially want some quotes on retirement, for example?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we need to follow the proper disclosure regulations, but yes, I mean, part of this will be to get members to actually, undertake their own journey, really, rather than kind of come to us, where we can then provide the information that they pretty much could get themselves.
Yes.
I I think as we go through the whole digital transformation process, it won't just be the estimates, but it'll be the whole retirement process that members can actually begin to self-serve on through fully automated channels. Whereas at the moment we are very much kind of stuck in the sort of 1920s.
But we have to start somewhere, and I think we're not. It'd be great to have it fully automated, but that's some way down the line. But what we can do is push people to do initial estimates online, and that's going to take a lot of hassle, out of the pipeline. And I think we need to do that now rather than, in a few months' time. And my second point was about the backlog project, which is great that you are setting up a project team. Will we have a project plan that tells us when you foresee or when you estimate that you'll be reducing or clearing those backlogs?
Well, yeah, I'll do 2 points there, Shirley. So yes, as I said, over 6 months is our overall target aim, but we will bring reports to committee and pension board to sort of show progress on that. And I'll be getting weekly reports on how that backlog is being reduced. Because obviously it cuts right through all the different process types that we have. I did just want to quote on the self-serve. So members already do some. There is some self-service in there, but we just need to increase the traffic through that process, so members are more confident in doing that themselves, and we are signposting members to self-service rather than have them contact us and there's a delay before we can get information out to them. Much of our backlog in some respects is correspondence followed by a reminder followed by another reminder, because we're just not getting stuff through at the moment. So we're kind of building a bit of a rod for our own back, really. So
yes, it is difficult, isn't it? Because the longer it goes on, the more chases you're going to get through. But I think I would support you being more proactive in terms of pushing people towards the online route, if that's the quickest way of getting their issue resolved.
Yeah, I mean, certainly with iConnect now, monthly returns coming through from our employers, the data on the system is pretty much up to date. So you're not looking at something that was posted the end of the last financial year. So it's as pretty much accurate as it can be, as long as the system holds the correct data and we're constantly reviewing our data. Then you should have confidence in the information that a member's getting out of the system. It's still an estimate.
Yes, absolutely.
But you should be relatively confident that that's a fairly decent and accurate estimate. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Right, I'm not surprised this is the item that's attracting the most attention from the committee, because I had a long chat with staff yesterday on this very subject. I've got 3 more speakers. Next up is William New.
Thank you, Chair. Jeff, I just want to say that use the employers in that message in getting online access, because whenever I do any pension seminar, I did 2 this week on various forums. My passing tips for them is get themselves online self-service, not just on the Avon Pension Fund. If they're in teacher pension scheme, get themselves online. So do use employers to spread that message as well. And I've got it on my intranet site. So, so if anybody goes into looking at pension scheme in the university, they will see links on Avon Pension Fund to a strong hint telling them that register themselves online. So if it's possible, I don't know whether you'll be able to give employers breakdown on our members online basis, but if not, but the message is use, particularly the large employers, use them to spread the message. The other one is I know you from time to time run seminars, but do consider on an online world, run seminars for members, and then you can spread that message as well. What I found it going around the university is staff are crying out for more information, and they don't know what they don't know, and that's really interesting. So to and really understand and appreciate the pension membership of Avon Pension Fund. So that's my message.
Thank you, William. Sorry, just very quickly, William, just to say, I think we can get a breakdown of who we've got signed up per employer. So it might be useful to actually let you know, and maybe the other larger employers as well. And a little bit around online engagement with members. Certainly, again, I think this is something we need to kind of embrace. And I think we really do need the technology to support that at the moment, because we haven't really got it. So that's a bit of an ask for our employer. Thank you, William.
Okay, thanks very much. John Cato.
Thank you, Chair. My question is really about the self-service as well. Have usability evaluations been carried out on this? And if so, how many? And how does it perform against recognised metrics for usability performance?
In a very short answer to that, John, is no. I don't think we have had a usability performance sort of survey carried out. I think it's something we can go back to members and ask how user-friendly it is. The system itself, which is called Member Self-Service or My Pension Online, it probably still needs further development. It's not the best in the world, but it's what links us. It's a secure portal that we have with our software provider. But at the moment, probably it could be better, and it's not overly user-friendly. So I think if we did do a survey, and it's not a bad idea, to members who are signed up, how often do they use it? And if they use it to correspond with us, how easy do they find it? Or how easy have they found it if they've gone through a retirement experience or an estimate experience, and get some feedback that we could use then to feed back into our provider. So I think that is it's a very good question.
So just to add to that, in my previous life, I used to do usability evaluations a lot. And my experience in doing that is it really does pay off in terms of carrying them out and getting improved systems from a usability point of view. It then means that more people will use it, more people will be satisfied about using it, and more people will be recommending to their friends to use it. So the numbers that you've got at the moment will increase dramatically, and the amount of workload you'll get will go down a lot.
Yes, no, thank you, appreciate that. I think the thing with pensions is people only really are interested in using the system if they want to get something out of it. Quite often
that's part of the problem, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why it does need to be really good, because
yes,
they're not doing it all the time.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, anyway,
Okay.
I'll leave that with you.
Thanks, Tony Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up a few points that Jeff had raised, really. I think COVID has really exposed the need for digital developments in a number of areas, not least of all the fact we lack a customer relationship management system to help us manage all the inquiries we're dealing with. So that's one that's on the agenda. I think the second area is, whilst we do have a member self-service platform, which has got sort of 20-30% take up, I think we do need to do an awful lot more to sort of encourage that. But also I think the significant development is around sort of integrating employer self-service as well, and enabling the machine to do more. So that's it's another big area of development we need to be pushing our software suppliers on, really, because all the data and all the mechanics are all in the system, and we're really talking about workflow. So it's about joining these things up, really, and getting our software suppliers to think about these issues differently. We're all part of one big system. I think the other thing I wanted to pick up was around the offices. We are still dealing with the COVID situation, so to some extent, our access to the office is still restricted by that. But there is a remodelling as well going on of the Keynsham offices, which will sort of deliver sort of much friendlier blended working environment over the coming months. As part of that process, we are putting bids in for use of office space. So we're bidding for a minimum of 50%. To sort of make sure that our teams can meet much more frequently in the office environment, but just recognising that there simply isn't all the space to accommodate everybody in the organisation, so council-wide. So there has to be some some compromise on that, but we are trying to sort of force the understanding across the organisation in these sort of financial transactional services, which what we are, team working is pretty essential, and it is pretty essential for their learning development and for our controls as well, that people are working in a team-based environment. Sure.
Thank you very much, Tony. And the last speaker on this item is Paul May.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted, just hearing Tony's comments and Jeff's comments earlier on about the impact it's having on staff through not being able to go into the office. It was perhaps a bit naughty to ask Jeff to answer that. And I'm just wondering, Chair, there's a Baines corporate element around the use of offices, but this is the Avon Pension Fund. And it's really whether you could take up on behalf of the pension team the accommodation issue directly with whoever's got to be spoken to about it, because if that's adversely affecting our performance, we're talking about large sums of money, lots of people involved, and I just wonder whether you'd be prepared to take that up on behalf of the staff.
I'm taking up several things on behalf of the staff, but I'll add that to the list. The other one that I'm really looking for is getting improved laptop and technology to the pensions team at a higher rate than they're currently in the schedule for the rollout. So I'll take that one up as well, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
As well.
Thank you.
Okay, can we just have someone move that the recommendations in the report?
I'll move it, Chair.
Seconded?
Chair.
Right, again, I'm assuming everyone's happy unless I start seeing some discontent arise. I'm seeing no discontent from anyone, so that's another unanimous vote for. Thank you very much. Item 16 is the budget and cash flow monitoring. Invite David Richards to present the report, please.
Thanks, Chair, but I'll do it in his absence because there's not really much. It's such an early report at this stage of the financial year. So I think the main thing is that the corporate audit will be signing off the accounts for the pension fund alongside the council's accounts later on in the year. I think it's now scheduled for December. And but all I put in this paper is actually the draft wording for the going concern, so that you're aware of what the going concern considerations will be that the corporate audit will consider. But other than that, I'm happy to take questions. I'll try and answer them as long as they're not a technical accounting question.
Right. Do we have any questions on this paper? Or any points that anyone wants to make? Questions or points? I'm getting no one indicate that they've got questions or points they want to make. So can we have someone move the recommendations of the report that we note that?
So moved, Chris.
Second, please.
Second, Bruce.
Right, so again, I'll assume that unless I see discontent, everyone's in favour of that. I'm seeing no signs of discontent, so that's another unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Last item on the agenda is 17 work plans, and can I invite Caroline Morgan to present, please?
Thank you, Chair. So attached to this report are the work plans for the committee and the investment panel, which set out the provisional agendas for the year ahead, as well as the proposed training plan. The dates for future committee and panel meetings are also included, as well as the quarterly monitoring report for the service plan. The report is for noting, but happy to take any questions.
Do we have any questions? I'm seeing no one indicate or on chat or waving at me that they've got any questions. I'll give you a few more seconds. Right, can someone move that we note?
Move we note, Chair.
Second it?
Seconded.
Right, and so again, the default position is that you approve the recommendation, so I'm only looking for anyone who doesn't approve. I'm seeing no one object. So again, to end the evening, afternoon, we've got another unanimous report. Thank you everyone for attending and watching the meeting, and thank you for your time. One day we will get back to a world where we meet up and can see each other and have a cup of tea together. But anyway, thank you very much. And so I formally bring this meeting to a close.